get ready for this one. We're diving into something truly unique today. A Tamil poem. It's called Hymn 19. It's all about divine guidance, spiritual awakening, and finding that deep joy.
Yeah.
Like a soul pep talk.
I like that.
So we've got an English translation and explanation of the original Tamil text.
Okay.
Which is amazing because we're looking at the words, but also how they've traveled across, languages and cultures to reach us.
And what's incredible is how this poem, even in translation, it just doesn't waste any time. It just grabs your attention right away.
Right.
It starts off with this bold declaration claiming that every single word in this poem comes straight from the Lord, the supreme leader.
Like, whoa, hold on, this is important,
Right.
It makes me wonder, how would that change, how I listen? And if I really believe that,
Right.
how would it change how I live my life?
Yeah, it adds a whole other dimension to the poem, doesn't it? Because it's not just poetry anymore, it's a direct message from above.
Right.
And then it gets even more fascinating when the poem emphasizes this very moment right now as this auspicious time, a time that's just perfect for spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Like a wake-up call, like, hey, pay attention.
Yeah, there's a real sense of urgency to that, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Like, why now? What is it about this particular moment that the poem's saying is so crucial for growth?
That's a really great question, and I think it goes right to the heart of what the poem's trying to communicate. I mean, one way to look at it is that, every moment has that potential, but we often need those reminders.
Yeah, we need those nudges.
Exactly, to recognize the opportunities.
It's like we're given a wake-up call, but then it's up to us to answer it.
That's a great way to put it.
And then the poem just drives home the point by giving this incredible image of the great Lord, speaking from a heavenly throne,
right,
offering guidance.
That image is so powerful.
Yeah.
And it connects to so many different traditions, right? This idea of higher power offering direction.
Absolutely.
But what I find really interesting is how this poem depicts that relationship between the divine and the human,
Right.
Is it just straight up obedience? Or is there something more nuanced there, like a partnership or a conversation?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'm also curious about how that guidance works, Is it step-by-step instructions or is it like subtle nudges? Because right after that image of the throne, we get this amazing promise, divine grace is going to bring blessings, especially as we await the Lord's arrival.
Yes, the arrival.
Yeah.
Now things are getting really interesting because
Right.
we could interpret this arrival literally, right, as a physical event.
Right.
But I think the poem is inviting us to think about it a bit more metaphorically,
Yeah.
Perhaps this arrival is about profound realization, like a spiritual awakening or a deep connection with the divine.
So less about something outside happening, more like an internal transformation.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, pay attention, something amazing is about to happen within you. But just when you think it's all, about these intense spiritual experiences, the poem makes this shift and starts talking about sweet speech and bringing joy.
It's so interesting.
What a big shift in tone.
You go from that authority to gentleness.
Right.
It's like, this message is powerful, but it's also meant to uplift you.
It's like saying spirituality shouldn't be all doom and gloom.
Right.
There's a place for joy,
Absolutely.
even with serious stuff.
Yeah.
And then the poem goes on to tell the listener, understand, awaken, and attain success alongside the poet.
It's a call to action.
Yes.
It's not enough to just listen. You have to engage.
Put it into practice.
Exactly. And strive for that spiritual growth.
So it makes me wonder what specific actions it might be suggesting. Is it about meditation or maybe acts of service?
I think it leaves that beautifully open-ended.
Yeah.
It's like a map guiding you, but you choose your path.
I love that. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it really captures what we've been talking about. And what strikes me is that the poem explicitly says that this guidance comes from a place of caring, of compassion.
Absolutely. It's not about judgment. It's about helping others find that true happiness.
And then it takes it even further by highlighting that the speaker's own joy comes from seeing others succeed spiritually.
That's a beautiful concept, isn't it?
It is.
It's about collective flourishing.
So we've gone from this image of divine authority to this emphasis on sweet speech, from action to this vision of shared joy.
It's amazing how much the poem packs into these first few lines.
It really is.
And what I find so fascinating is that even after all of this, it leaves us with a question. What path will you choose?
It's like, okay, now that you've heard this, what are you going to do with it?
Exactly. It empowers us to find our own way. Welcome back to our deep dive into Hymn 19.
So we've been talking about some pretty profound themes like divine authority, spiritual awakening, the power of kind speech.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, about the poem structure itself. Like, it doesn't exactly rhyme, in the traditional way.
You're right. It doesn't follow, like, a strict rhyme scheme or meter.
Right.
But it still has structure. The way the ideas are presented.
Yeah.
Like, each couplet builds upon the one before it.
Right.
Like a staircase leading you higher towards understanding.
I love that. That's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
Each line adds another layer.
And the poet uses these images so effectively to reinforce the ideas. We talked about the throne representing that divine authority.
Right.
But then you have the sweetness of speech, which symbolizes that kindness.
It's not just decoration. It's really driving home the meaning.
Exactly.
I'm drawn to that image of awakening. Such a powerful metaphor,
It really is.
It's not just about being physically awake, right? It's about becoming aware of something deeper.
It's that shift in consciousness from ignorance to understanding, recognizing that spark within us.
It makes me wonder, what does that awakening actually feel like,
Right.
Is it sudden or is it gradual?
That's a great question, and I think the beauty of this poem is that it doesn't say, it could be sudden, like a bolt of lightning, or it could be gradual, like a flower blooming.
Yeah.
It could be triggered by, a profound event or a quiet moment.
So it's about being open to those moments, those opportunities, right?
Exactly, and trusting the path, however unpredictable, will lead us to that fulfillment.
This all feels so relevant, even though it was written so long ago.
Right.
I wonder if the poet could have imagined that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It speaks to how we all search for meaning, for purpose. The challenges might be different, but the desire is the same.
And that's what makes this poem so powerful.
I agree.
It connects to something universal.
Absolutely. It transcends time and culture.
It's not tied to any one religion.
Right. It speaks to a human desire for connection, for meaning.
It makes you think about how we can apply these teachings today.
Yeah. What would it look like to live by these principles in the 21st century?
It's a blueprint for a meaningful life.
It really is.
But, as we talk about this, I can't help but wonder about the poet themselves. Who were they?
That's a question that comes up a lot, right? When we look at ancient texts, but unfortunately our source material doesn't give us any biographical information about the poet.
It's so intriguing though, right? Like, we get a glimpse of their soul through their words.
Yeah.
But the rest is a mystery.
It adds a certain allure to the poem. It allows us to focus on the message itself.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful messages come from unexpected places.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached a good point to pause our deep dive into Hymn 19.
There's still so much more to uncover. In the final part, we'll look at some other interpretations and how these themes connect to other spiritual traditions from around the world. Welcome back. We've spent the last two parts, really digging into Hymn 19, exploring the themes, the structure, even wondering about the poet. And while we talked about, the Lord's arrival as like a spiritual awakening, I'm wondering if there are other ways to interpret that.
You're right. That idea of arrival is so central. And it definitely has many interpretations. For instance, some scholars think it symbolizes like the awakening of your own inner divinity rather than, the arrival of an external deity.
So like realizing that the wisdom we seek, it's already within us.
Exactly.
That's a fascinating perspective.
It really emphasizes, personal responsibility and the power we have to shape our own journeys.
It's not about waiting for enlightenment to just like strike us.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner connection.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like that saying, the kingdom of God is within you.
Exactly.
Recognizing that potential, for greatness, for connection. And it ties in so well with that earlier emphasis on taking action.
Absolutely.
Striving for understanding.
It's like the poem is saying, hey, you have everything you need to awaken to your true self.
And does that idea of inner divinity also connect to that other emphasis on sweet speech?
I think it does.
Okay.
Some scholars see that focus on sweet speech as a call for nonviolence. Not just in our words, but also our actions.
So it's not just about, like, being polite.
Right.
It's deeper than that.
It's about understanding that we're all connected. And that our actions they have a ripple effect.
So approaching everything with mindfulness.
Exactly.
Choosing words that promote, healing, connection.
Absolutely.
These interpretations add so much depth.
It's amazing how much is packed into so few lines.
It makes me think, what else are we missing?
Well, that's the beauty of poetry, isn't it?
Yeah.
It invites us to find our own meaning. There's no one right answer.
So true.
And speaking of different perspectives, how do the themes in Hymn 19 connect to other traditions around the world?
Yeah, we touched on that a bit, but tell me more.
This is where things get really exciting. Because even though this poem comes from a specific context, its themes, they resonate with so many spiritual beliefs and practices, like Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, even Christianity.
Right, it's that idea of guidance, awakening, finding joy in serving others.
Exactly, these are universal concepts.
It makes sense that we may use different words, follow different paths, but at the heart of it, we're all searching for something more.
Absolutely. It's that shared human yearning.
It unites us.
It reminds us that these ancient teachings, they're not just relics.
Right.
They can still guide us today.
It's like they're alive.
And on that note, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive into Hymn 19.
We've covered so much,
We have.
explored so many layers, and hopefully sparked some new thoughts for you, the listener.
As you go about your day, remember the words of Hymn 19. Maybe there's an auspicious moment just around the corner.
Yeah.
A chance for you to awaken.
A deeper understanding. And remember, you're not alone on this journey.
Seek guidance. Be compassionate.
Find joy in helping others grow.
Because true happiness, it lies in that collective flourishing.
Beautifully said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Hymn 19. We'll see you next time.